Apparently 3 equals 7. My 3 fundamentals, which of course can be tested and verified by all, apparently have been debunked. But not by providing 3 scientific demonstrations like I asked for. No, apparently we've had 7 provided in a so-called debunk video. So let's have a look.
Number 1. Watch a ship sail off to sea. Without being in the sky, it's impossible to actually see the curvature of the Earth. But that doesn't mean it's not possible to demonstrate it before you say anything down in the comment. However, you can always see a demonstration of this if you visit a harbour or any place with a wide open view of the water. If you're able to...
So this fella thinks observations are demonstrations. Oh dear.
Watch a ship sail off to sea. Watch its mast and flags as they fade off into the distance. You'll notice that, in fact, it doesn't do that at all. Instead, you will see the mast and flag slowly sink. The ship sailed beyond the point at which you could see it. Just to be sure, bring a pair of binoculars with you so that you can see even farther off into the distance. It's as if you're watching it go over the other side of a hill. Weird, I know. This phenomenon...
So this fellow thinks boats are actually descending below the curvature of a scientifically impossible globe Earth. He cites observations, as he's just done, as demonstrations, as he's just said. So this fellow's citing an observation as a scientific demonstration. So already we can see he doesn't really understand the subject at hand. He thinks an observation is a demonstration. No, your observation needs to be backed by a demonstration for it to be scientific, which was my whole point in the first place when I quote my 3 fundamentals. They can't be refuted and they prove the globe's impossible. I shouldn't even be entertaining this tosh, but I will for educational purposes. This fella, if this was true, this was down to real curvature and not some optical effect here, then if I was to elevate my position, then I'd be looking down. The higher up I got, the further down beyond the curve I'd be looking. But that's not how reality presents itself to us. When I raise up, the horizon will raise up with me, and appearing higher and beyond the horizon cut-off point on our screen at the moment. Impossible if the Earth was a ball. Because if the Earth was a ball, and that was the horizon line, if I was to raise up, the higher up I got, the further down I'd have to look. Because remember, from this point on, globe believers believe the Earth is descending downwards. So this fella citing this observation, which of course has no practical reference to back its claims anyway. When I say practical reference, you need a large standing body of water to display convexity upon its surface, to back any observations over water. Because we all know, contest and verify, the molecular structure of water cannot behave in the manner in which the globe says. It's a fact. So to cite this is just ridiculous. 1, the Earth would be terribly small. 2, you'd have some demonstrable science to back your claims in the first place. And 3, if I was to elevate up, which again can be tested and verified by all, if this was globe physical curve, the higher up I went, the further down I'd be looking. But it's not. That's not how reality presents itself to us. And of course, we've also got to take something else into account. We cross-reference things with scientific demonstrations with observations for a very good reason. Not only over large standing bodies of water or over the ocean, you've got lots of things going on like tides, swells. You're looking through a very dense medium across large bodies of water, so you've got all sorts of optical effects. You've also got to take into account our vision, like train tracks. They appear to converge. But we know they don't in real life. I could walk this track right up to the point where it appears to converge and see that it doesn't. I'd look back at where we stood now, and that would appear to converge. And I could walk back again where I'm started, where we are now, and we can see that it doesn't. So we know there's stuff going on with our vision as well. We know train tracks don't converge in real life, yet they appear to. So we've got stuff going on with our vision. You've got stuff going on optically over like a viewing medium that would be the ocean, which is why we cross-reference with practical demonstrations using the substance at hand, i.e. water. That way we can't be fooled by our vision or the viewing conditions of the day, because we've cross-referenced with scientific demonstrations of the substance, and that way our observations are scientific. If our observations aren't backed by scientific demonstrations, they're inconclusive. That's why it's always about scientific demonstrations and not observations. Observations are fine as long as they got demos to back their fundamental claims.
Number 2, watch a lunar eclipse. If you're able to catch a glimpse of a lunar eclipse, you can see evidence that Earth is indeed a globe. Here's how it works.
So Matey Boy now has gone from boats going over the horizon to now sky observations, none of which are scientific demonstrations, both of which are observations that have no demonstrations to back their fundamental claims. In this instance, he thinks a scientifically impossible globe Earth is casting a shadow upon the moon. This is painful stuff. I'm surprised anyone is still citing this tosh in this day and age. But here we are. Not only are we having to entertain this tosh, I'm only doing it for educational purposes, but so deluded are these people that they actually thought they had a result it. Crazy stuff. Now, if the eclipse in your model was true and was proof of a globe Earth, we'd never have this. Bear with me. When we have a selenalion eclipse, which is rarer but highlights the absurdity of the heliocentric claims that the shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse is being cast from a scientifically impossible ball. Because a selenalion eclipse happens when both the sun and the moon are above the Earth at the same time. Impossible if the shadow that is being cast upon the moon during the lunar eclipse is as a result of a globe Earth, the curve of the globe Earth. Impossible if they're both above the horizon at the same time above the Earth. So it's obvious eclipses are cycles to do with the lights in the sky and nothing to do with a scientifically impossible ball obstructing or casting shadows on moons or anything else for that matter.
Number 3, climb a tree. Now try and imagine a vast plain with just one tree smack in the middle of it. If the Earth were flat, your vision would extend exactly as far while standing at the base of the tree as it would when you were at the top of the tree. However, the farther you climb, the farther your line of sight will extend to the horizon.
What tosh this fellow is spewing. What is he talking about? The higher you raise yourself on a level plane, the further you can see. Yeah? It would be the same on the globe as well. The only difference is the higher you go, the further down you'd be looking, according to your model. But that's not how reality presents itself to us, is it? So what are you talking about, fella? You've got no scientific demonstrations whatsoever. Just waffle. Observations. Oh dear.
Fun. Number 4, circumnavigation. So if you can do that, Slinky, why don't you? Like Ferdinand Magellan did when he circumnavigated the Earth. And what that means is he left heading west, continued going west, and he ended up back where he started.
You mean like this? There's my magnetic north. This is me, the traveller, my compass. I'm now circumnavigating around the magnetic north. And as you can see, I've now circumnavigated the magnetic north on a flat table. Dear oh dear.
Number 5, measure shadows across the country. Pick 2 locations that are some distance apart, at least a couple of 100 miles from each other, but on the same meridian. Grab 2 sticks of equal length.
This guy's so lost and so uninformed on this subject that he's actually citing shadows and sticks as proof. Oh dear. Not having a Scooby-Doo that you get the same results with a smaller local sun. This has been terrible. This is probably the worst ever so-called globe debunk or globe proof video I think I've ever encountered. This would have been ridiculed back in 2014. Yet alone now, I've actually been nice about it because I feel sorry for these people. But what are they thinking? They don't even understand their own arguments. They don't even understand how silly they look. No citation of any science to back what's been cited here in the first place. This is terrible, fella.
6. Take a flight from Buenos Aires to Perth, otherwise known as taking 747 pilot Casey from the Channel 74 gear up on his offer to fly with flat earthers on a flight that they say is impossible because the earth is flat. I wonder if that Kickstarter campaign...
Why would I take a super expensive flight to try and defend something that's not my claim in the first place? My claim's a demonstrable reality, tested and verified by all. If you want maps, it's full exploration, based off the fact that the globe's scientifically impossible, that we've been lied to. So why would I get in a plane and entertain ridiculous prices, no doubt for some skullduggery to take place, to try and convince me that the Earth is exactly the opposite to what can be tested and verified by all? Of course I wouldn't. You've proven how silly the globe is with this so-called debunk. And of course you've proven to us and shown to us all here how little you actually understand about this subject. Terrible show, fella.
Number 7, the moon appears upside down if viewed from Australia. Now, why does the moon look upside down from Australia? It's because we're on a spherical...
Matey boy here thinks because the moon appears upside down in places like Australia in relation to, say, in the UK. He thinks that's because the Earth's a spinning, wobbling, oscillating ball, one that's doing ludicrous speeds in all different directions. I'll use this smoke detector as an example for the moon. I'm looking at it from, say, the UK. The red appears to be the top, the blue is the bottom, okay? I'm now going to go the opposite side of the smoke detector, mimicking being in Australia, looking at the moon from the opposite direction. And when I do, I change positions, the moon, or my fire detector, smoke detector, now appears upside down. The blue is now at the top and the red is at the bottom. I go back to where I started. Red is at the top, blue is at the bottom. So it appears upside down in the opposite positions when I swap and go the opposite side. Is the floor I'm walking on a spinning, wobbling, oscillating ball, one that's doing ludicrous speeds in all different directions? No, I'm just the other side of what we know as the moon. And as a result, the face of it appears upside down. UK, Australia. Old arguments that I shouldn't have to go over. So to finish up, it's quite obvious that this guy hasn't got a Scooby-Doo. Probably, in my opinion, the worst ever debunk of all time. Remember my claims? Demonstrable reality, the 3 fundamentals. Tower cranes and pendulums do not have the ability to be dead still and plumb whilst doing ludicrous speeds in all different directions. Fact. Can have an air pressure system next to a vacuum without some kind of solid wall to separate the two. Fact. And large standing bodies of water do not have the ability to display convexity upon its surface. Fact. 3 facts that proves the globe impossible. Then you look at a so-called debunk to refute my scientific demonstrations, and all we got was just pure fantasy, waffle, old argumentation, just drivel. The only thing this proved was that the globe is quite frankly ridiculous, and that this video, this so-called debunk, is up there with one of the worst of all time as far as trying to prove the globe, which of course is scientifically impossible anyway. But even I could do better than this tosh. And I know the globe's scientifically impossible. This was the worst of the worst. At least it's done, dusted. We don't have to address this character or his delusions anymore. Just to highlight for educational purposes the delusions that reside in these globe representatives' heads and the misunderstandings. It's a shame.